Prologue. Greed. 5 months ago, Relo hell. The air was crisp, the smoky breeze from the sulfuric fumes of my black stallion rolling off my face. My flame horse marched with a strong violent stride, galloping off hell's speed, leading my army of men and a chariot occupying my 2 wives in it. This mid-eve, I'd come to collect my debt. These Lithenian demons were taking my kindness for granted. Because I had allowed them an additional 24 hours to come up with their overdue taxes, and they'd come short every season. But tonight, I was determined to send them another reminder. The village elder was the first to spot the pillars of torchlights flickering off the horizon for my entourage. He noticed the blonde god who had long taken human skin as a masked vessel, tall, lean, and charming to a fault. I wore a white suit and carried a smile just as bright, one that had every demon shaking down their hooves. Their barren land of clay homes and moss tents was an insult to someone of my rank and power. As I closed in on them, I noticed the gathering around the campfire beginning to disperse, those Lithenians cowering at my presence. As they should. They lined up their limited defenses, bringing me the tallest and broadest men to block my path. With their goddess under my capture, they were straight out of options, their pathetic formation bringing a long smile to my face. Well, at least they had their cute little spears and arrows to play with. I gave my horse a command, reeling in the reins, and forcing my beast on his hind legs. The village elder approached me, with those same sunken milky white eyes glaring at me crossly. My horse towered over him, a death beast with skin rotting along the ribs, jowls stretched back and wide, and sanguine eyes that would tear your soul out. My horse frothed through his jagged teeth, the lack of intimidation rolling off this man's wrinkled skin eating at my patience. At least this time, he bowed in respect, the hard lesson evident from the huge gash behind his wrapped forehead. Lord Curran, of Bido, my guard announced, and everyone fell to their hands and knees. The air was unsettling and stiff as I paced down that line, my eyes scanning the few who were brave enough to stand here before me. Every cluck caught a sweat drop from these insubordinates, holding their positions underneath me until my guard gave his signal. But there was one sorry soul who decided to break, a stout old hag in dingy drapes tossing a dark glance at me. I dismounted my horse with no weapons, because I didn't need any, bearing the power to absorb kinetic energy and life forces as I wanted them. The old hag with horns and blue skin tensed up as I approached her, realizing her fuck up. She shook with every step I took toward her, bowing her head further into the ground. Lost something, my baritone fired condescendingly, the rest of those low-life demons trying not to stare at me as I stood over this peasant. I bared my fangs, my wide stance casting a shadow over her. Well. Answer me. She whimpered, then jerked her folded hands up in mercy. Please, I beg you. Don't. Don't what? I grinned. Don't take my life. I apologize for my insincerity. Oh. That's what you're calling it. Because I thought you were being downright fucking rude. I growled, slamming my boot into her back and forcing her chest into the mud. None of you are worthy to even be in my presence. You're not worth the air you breathe. It must be a shame, being born to such a useless and weak sin. I snorted. Lust. Are you kidding me? While warping emotions might sound good on paper, it is nothing compared to the sheer willpower of a true god. I summoned the fire from the camp and fashioned it into a long sharp blade of molten magma. The weapon hardening in my grasp to terminate this witch. Please, spare us your brutality, Lord Greed, the chief's croaky voice begged. Our debt to you is here, fully replenished. 2 men presented me with a bag of nudas, the gold of my time. I'll take your filthy money, and your worthless lives. I growled. You demons make me sick. I should have gotten rid of you dirty rejects a long time ago. I continued to bark at them, then turned to the quaking woman still on her hands and knees. Yes, I am done here. You demons have nothing to offer. You're just vermin in the land, taking up precious space. And I need to get rid of all pests, before your kind starts to swarm my new kingdom. I raised my blade over her back, my grip on the hilt tight. There's no place for you in the realm of greed. I'll let your carcass fertilize my earth. Yeah, how does that sound? That way, you'd be useful for something. You pruny worthless bitch. Stop. I heard a voice call out just as I was about to impale the woman. Her beauty turned me, her pointed ears flickering as soon as my height loomed over her. She dipped her head south, that bashful and frightened look on her face making her seem more appetizing. I looked her up and down, from those delicious curves, to those metallic scales over her light blue body. She had 2 dark frontal horns on her forehead, similar to that old woman I was about to slaughter, with her long ivory hair hiding that pretty round face of hers. Name. I asked her. Dera. And how old are you, Dera? Anudera, she hesitated. Have you bled? No. I grinned, letting my finger graze her chin so I could pick her head up to me. I looked into those huge bright eyes and promised, don't worry. I will make a woman out of you yet. I'd be stupid not to take her. I moved to mount her on horseback before the old woman called out to me again, begging, please, my lord. Not my granddaughter. I will give you anything. You name it. Just spare my only grandchild, please. Shit, I've had just about enough of your goddamn mouth, woman. I prepared to strike her before Dara cried out. Please, no. I turned to her, her face screaming at me. The girl was eager to save her grandmother, that greasy sobbing peasant on her knees with her hands holding her throbbing head. There is no bitter blood between us, Dara whispered smoothly, her spunk bringing her as close as she could get to my chest. You like me, don't you? I grunted, entertained by her forwardness with me. You can say that, I growled in pleasure. Strip for me, Dara. Her eyes softened. Let me see what awaits my bed tonight. And she did, without hesitation. The thin piece of cloth she had draped around her shoulders fell off, letting her full perky breasts bounce before me. She even turned around as she pulled down her skirt so I could admire the full picture, a thin waist, a plump round ass, and a pair of thick legs to sink my fangs into. I groaned, my hand brushing over the dimples above her ass cheeks, while my other hand slipped behind her neck. Appetizing, I whispered over her full pink lips, flashing her my greedy fangs. One of Lithenia's better payments. I can also weave magic and become more useful to you, my lord. All I ask is that you spare my people. Heh, I can't do that. But, tell you what. I'll spare your grandma over there. Sounds good. Her eyes grew, my new pet terrorized. Have it the rest of them, men. Soil the dirt with their blood, and teach my sister a dark lesson in diplomacy.